Folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. I want to talk about two separate subjects today, so you're kind of getting a twofer here. You're getting kind of two videos, two topics into one. Hopefully, I can run through both of them pretty quickly and not take a really long time, for a long video. The first one, I believe it was yesterday that I made a video. Maybe it was the day before, age and things kind of all blurs together. But I made a video talking about communications once again and how it was necessary for you to develop good alternative communications within your groups. And of course, again, I was promoting as one of those to be ham radio. A lot of people were kind of pushing back on that. To use ham radios now, you're required to have a license. And people were saying, well, I'll just wait and have them, and when everything hits the fan, then I'll use them, and I won't need a ham radio license after that. Let me give you my opinion on both of those points, okay? Number one, and this is really the big one, and I'm not telling you should go out and register your name and location with everything, but the reality is, if you're not getting a ham radio license because you don't want the government to know about you, they already do, okay? Unless you was born and raised in some type of off-grid society, or maybe Amish or something like that, and you have never had your name registered in any way with any kind of government agency, they already know who you are. They already know where you're at. If you don't have a social security number or a driver's license, or have never had a bank account, or never had medical insurance, if you've never purchased a firearm, you've never been online, say at a Twitter page or a Facebook account, or been on some type of blog or forum that has a political slant. If you've never given money to a political party or registered as a Republican or even a Democrat, if you've never done any of these things, if purchasing things online, if you ever purchased any type of survival gear, camping gear, firearms related items, ammunition, things like that, if you've never done any of that kind of stuff, then they wouldn't know who you are. If you've never driven a car in registering a vehicle, then they wouldn't know who you are. But if you've done any of these things, and many more, they already know who you are. They already know your location. They've probably got a pretty good idea of where your political slant is, if they consider you a threat or not. They probably already have you flagged, that you could be one potential person that needs to be rounded up at some point in the future. They do this very well. I remember many years ago, when I was in law enforcement, I had the opportunity to visit what is called a fusion center. And if some of you know exactly what that is, and some of you do not. And a fusion center is basically either a government-run or government-contracted facility that just collects data, massive amounts of data. There are hundreds of these all over the world, all over the United States. And originally they were manned by people, individuals, data processors, inputting information. But nowadays it's all done by computers. The same level of artificial intelligence that creates algorithms, on Facebook and on Amazon and all these other big tech websites, that they're able to predict what you might want to buy next, or when you're talking to your wife about purchasing some dog food, and the next thing you know, there's an advertisement about dog food, or anything like that. That same level of technology, the government is also using it, and it's collecting data. So it's unfortunate that this is happening, but it is the reality. And it's something that we have to live with. Now, I'm not saying we should just be careless and do anything we want online and register and do all these things because they already have it. Because certainly certain things that you do are going to create more red flags than others. But there's over 750,000 ham radio operators in the United States. I don't think that that's the one thing that's going to flag you and to cause them to come, knock at your door. I could be wrong, so you make your own decisions. But I think the big reason why it's important, if your plan is to use ham radios, is you need to be using them. Okay, it's kind of like a firearm. If you're goal, if your plan is to use a firearm to either hunt or defend yourself, but yet you've never shot the thing. It's still in a box. It's never been taken out and sighted in. You've never trained with it. You've never, gotten used to the recoil or anything like that. You're going to be in a real hard place when it all hits the fan, and then you have to go pull it out of a box and open it up and use it for the first time. You should be using that now. You should be training with that now, and it's the same way with ham radio. The thing is that now they do monitor ham radio pretty closely, and it's not actually the government that's doing that. A lot of people think that the FCC is out there monitoring constantly the ham radio frequencies. They're not. They don't have enough manpower. You know who is monitoring it? Other ham radio operators. They're not paid by the government or anything. They're just very protective of those ham radio bands. And probably, I'm going to guess, well over 90% of the people that get turned in for using it without licenses are being turned in by other ham radio operators. I know, it's crummy, but that's just the way it is. They do that. And so if you're using ham radio frequencies without a license, there's a good chance you're going to get caught. And it's not because, again, that the FCC has some technology. It's because ham radio operators know how to triangulate your position very well with a lot of accuracy. I've done it before. If you're broadcasting, it's not too hard to triangulate and figure out pretty much where you're at. And you will get turned in eventually if you're using that. So it's just easier and better. It's not that difficult or expensive to get a license. And then you can be training and learning how to use one and really learn the techniques, because ham radio, it's, for those of you that don't know, it's not just a walkie-talkie, that you pull out and you click a button and you talk. You need to understand the weather and the solar patterns and the moon and all that kind of stuff, because it actually affects negatively or positively using ham radio and how well you can get out and how well you can communicate, what frequency bands, what that work and that don't. For instance, there are here in my local area with my radios, there's a gentleman, part of our group, that's on the other side of the county. And on some frequencies, he and I can communicate. On other frequencies, we cannot communicate because they're too high up on the band and it's just not penetrating the hills and the trees. So a lot of that has to do with just practice, learning, getting used to it. And while I'm not saying that you should go out and register everything and get on all these lists, personally for me, having the government know about me isn't really a big worry, because they already do. They already know everything about us. I just don't want all these companies like Amazon and Facebook and other private companies or just individuals getting my information and trying to use that. As far as the government, I figure they know probably more about me than I know about me, and so I'm not too worried about that. And we'll cross that road when it happens. I've gone far too long down that road. Of paying taxes, of having a social security number, driver's license, and firearms license, and working in law enforcement, and all kinds of other things, that they have plenty of information on me, and I don't really worry about that. So it's something to think about, because, getting out there and practicing with your radios and getting good at it so that you can communicate within your circles is really, really important. Knowing what works and what doesn't, so that you're not trying to figure it out on the run, literally, when the time is needed. Now, let's switch gears real quick and talk about something else completely different than ham radios. I don't usually put up the little pop-ups things, but I'm going to this time today, at least for the morning videos. Morning videos, I try not to do it. So this came out, and Bank of America is reporting that this year alone, and I'm assuming they're talking about the fiscal year because we've still got a month left almost for the year, so we'll just say it's the fiscal year. Either way, it doesn't matter. That in this past year alone, that the United States as a whole, government, people, companies, everything, has lost about 22 trillion dollars in value. $22 trillion in value. Based on stock markets going down, cryptocurrencies, the crashing housing market, real estate market, bond markets going down, everything. Everything has been going down. Now, this is, I feel, a very big deal. In fact, in this article, Bank of America is saying that this could be a major catalyst that's leading up to a coming collapse of the economy. I mean, they don't put it exactly those words, but it's pretty clear that their belief is that this is major. Now think about that, $22 trillion in 1 year, folks. That's almost the amount of national debt that we have accumulated over the last century, which is $32 trillion, and $22 trillion that we have lost in 1 year. Now, going back to what the Biden administration has repeatedly said, that, oh, this is the greatest, strongest economy ever. We're doing great. And of course, we mock that on this channel, and many others do too, about how we're in such a great economy, strong economy, and yet all these people are losing their jobs and businesses are shutting down and inflation is high. And, people are starting to struggle with their houses, house payments and car payments, and it's keeping their doors open because of, rising utility costs and fuel costs. And it's hurting the farming industry, and just about every industry in the United States is struggling at some way, some point, because of the economy slowing down. Looking at this number, $22 trillion, this is absolutely massive, folks. We're talking $22 trillion of wealth, someone's wealth, your wealth, my wealth, someone that's worth more, that has more value, their retirements, business wealth, big corporate wealth, banking wealth, wealth in general has been sucked out of our economy, has been sucked out of the United States in 1 year's time. This is a very massive number. Way back when the whole health crisis very, very first started, I don't want to take the time to go back and look. I'm not doing it. But if I remember correctly, it was probably in the first month or two of this happening, maybe even before we had the first real cases here in the United States, confirmed cases. I made a statement, and I think it's been the most accurate statement I've ever made on a video. And that is, I felt that what we were going to watch with this health crisis was the greatest wealth transfer in American history, maybe even in world history. And so far, it looks like that's what's happened. $22 trillion lost in 1 year. It goes somewhere, okay? Money is like energy and matter. It doesn't just disappear. It doesn't just disintegrate. It has to go somewhere, okay? So when the wealth is gone, it's being transferred. I think most of you kind of understand that. You can't take an object of mass and energy and it just disintegrate it. That energy has to be dissipated somewhere. And it's the same way with wealth. And so we're watching this wealth, $22 trillion in wealth, being transferred somewhere. Now, we don't know where that is. Some of it you probably could track down if you spent time, but most of it we just don't know. Has it gone to the banks? Well, if you read articles and stuff here lately, a lot of people are saying that these banks are becoming almost insolvent, that even the Federal Reserve itself has become pretty much insolvent. I was watching something the other night from one of the banking elites. This guy is an elite over in Switzerland. He's run their main banks there, and he's now the managing director of a large wealth fund. And he said, on paper, the Federal Reserve is insolvent. So where is all this wealth going? It's going somewhere. It's going into someone's pockets. It's shifting around the world. And really, that's what we're seeing happen in the last couple of years. We're seeing a major shift of powers happen. Is that shift of powers being moved over from the west to the east? And so nations of the east are now rising up, and they will consume that wealth and that power and rule the world in opposition to the West ruling the world over the last century or so. I don't know. It certainly looks that way. But this $22 trillion in wealth that is it's gone, it's been lost, is a major blow. That means a lot of individuals have lost a lot of money. They've lost money in their retirement funds. They've lost money when it comes to their home values, to their vehicle values, to just their self values. Maybe their money was in crypto, or it was in stock market, or it was just in a savings account, and they've had to spend out of their savings account, like we have heard. So many people are spending out of their savings account just to pay for bills and to exist. This is, in my opinion, a very serious thing for our nation. And if nothing else was going on, this alone is pointing to a major collapse, a major crash of our whole system. And it's something we have to brace for. Again, going back to this article, Bank of America is saying that 2023, this next year, the one that's coming up, in 3 weeks, is going to be a very dark, scary year. They're saying that the stock market's probably not going to see a lot of growth, just not a lot of growth in everything. And it could either be the year or leading up to the year that we could see some major resets, collapse, when it comes to the economy. So this is something you need to be aware of. You should be preparing for this, getting your money in order, getting your finances, your retirement, figuring out if you're going to be making that move to a more sustainable, self-sufficient lifestyle. The sooner the better on this. Even if you had to take a little bit of a loss right now to do that, it might be a better option in the long run. I can't make that kind of financial advice, but it might be. If selling your home now and moving to a sustainable place to kind of ride out the wave, it causes you to lose a little bit of money right now. Can you accept that loss now, and instead of accepting a major total loss later on down the road, 6 months, 12 months down the road because of the economy collapsing? I don't know, but it's certainly something to think about. I don't think that this problem's going to go away anytime too soon. There's nothing that I can see or that I have read that indicates that in the near future, the economy is going to make this rapid turnaround and everything's just going to start getting better and everyone's just going to start going through a 1950s style wealth boom. Everything that I have read and everything that I've seen, that it's just getting started, that it's going to continue to get worse. We haven't peaked yet. So one more thing, folks, that tells us that it's time to get our houses in order, to get prepared mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.